I'm back. I was gone for a week because, in all honesty, gonna be completely like, for real, I just didn't feel like making anything, and I didn't have anything to like make a video about, but now I do, because I watched The Descent last night. I watched it last night, came up with this morning. I have a card this time, which in case you couldn't figure it out by watching my videos, I don't plan them in advance. The Descent is a 2005 horror movie. It's written and directed out of the UK, but it's set in North Carolina, which is where I live. But it was like written obviously in the UK. It's based there. Most of the actresses, there's only one actor, and there most of the actresses are from the UK in some way, shape, or form. I was gonna say European, but they really are. They're either British or Scottish, I'm pretty sure, because it was filmed in Scotland and it's set in North Carolina. Here's a summary of the movie, including spoilers, so if you're worried about that. The movie came out in 2005, people. It's 15 years old. You'll be fine. So the beginning, we see our main character, Sarah, who's our main character and final girl. Plot twist, spoiler alert, whatever. She's the only one who makes it out alive. Spoiler alert. So we see her and two of her friends. Juno, she's like the mean girl within their little friend group. And then Beth, who's like probably Sarah's best friend. And they are whitewater rafting somewhere. It's never explained where, but it's assumed that they're in Scotland based on things that the characters say later, because that's where Beth and Sarah are from. Juno is the only American one, and we'd never figure out why she has so many European friends, but like all of her friends are Scottish. But then sometimes she has an accent, but most of the time she has an American accent. So it's like, Juno is kind of confusing. But anyways, sitting on a rock, we see Sarah's husband, Paul, and her daughter, Jessica. Jessica's like 6. She's got to be 5 or 6. She's pretty young. And then it cuts to Sarah, Paul, and Jessica in their car. And, you know, they had just gone on a girls' trip, so this is Sarah's first time seeing her family in a while. She's like excited. And Paul's like a little distant, and they start to talk about it. And then Paul gets distracted arguing with Sarah. He's the one driving. And Paul and Jessica are killed in a car accident, and Sarah is injured in that same accident. So then it cuts to Sarah and Beth driving on their way to meet Juno and the rest of their friends. Okay, so let me give you a rundown of the characters. There's Sarah, who's our main character and final girl. She's married to Paul and Jessica, who die in the opening scene of the movie in a car crash. Then we have Juno, who's like the mean girl type character, but she's still everyone's, like, they all like her. She's a good friend. She's just like a little, you know. There's Beth, who's Sarah's like best friend, I would say, in the group, and she's an English teacher. And she's also, I think, the oldest in the group, because they all make fun of her for being like an old lady. There's Becca, who I can't remember exactly what she does, but she's like a big sister figure to a lot of the girls in the group, but especially her actual little sister, Sam, who's a medical student. She has medical training, and that's important for later on. Then there's Holly, who's a like new person in the group. She's Juno's protege, as they call her. And then there's a scene where they're in this cute little cabin in the woods, in the forest, little cottage in the forest. It's adorable. And we get to know more about each character, and it's like a really good scene to sort of build a connection between the audience and the characters, which is very important because, like I said, we've got a final girl. I think you all know what that means. Fun fact, in the UK ending of this movie, there is no final girl. Everyone dies. And they changed that for American audiences. So I think my family owns this movie on DVD, and I think we have the alternate ending. The next day, Sarah has another weird dream. She keeps hearing her daughter, who is deceased, she keeps hearing her like giggling and stuff, you know, like cute little like 5-year-old girl giggle and whatever, like not a creepy one, but it's creepy to us. And then they're in 2 separate cars because there are a lot of them, and they're driving to this cave system called the Borum Cave System, which is, we've been told several times by characters that it's a tourist trap, it's level 2, it's not gonna be hard, they're gonna go spelunking, I think is what it's called, the exploration of caves as a hobby, so not as like a job. I called it cave diving, which is incorrect, but that's just what I called it. So fun fact about Borum, the Borum cave system, it's an actual cave system in Scotland though, and this is set in the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. So that's a fun fact that my mom discovered, probably by looking on IMDb. My mom loves IMDb. They start in this cave system and it's like these really beautiful shots, and then they find this passage and they jump down, well they like use a rope system, and they come down and they're in this big cavern, and then they find a tiny tunnel, they crawl through it, and it's so tight and awful, and I really hated watching that scene because the tunnel is so small, and they have a rope bag that's got like their ropes so that they can, you know, successfully climb and make it back. Sarah gets stuck in this tiny passage, and Beth, super good friend, like keeps her calm, tells her this weird joke about lemons. It's really funny. It's a very, very funny scene, or not a funny scene, but it's a funny line, and it really helps to calm Sarah down, and it like, again, it's building an emotional connection with the characters in the audience, and it's really cool. So the cave starts to collapse in on them as Sarah is finally getting free, and they have to abandon their second rope bag. They have this big argument, mostly everyone against Juno, because Juno took them to an unmarked and undiscovered cave system. They are not in the Borum cave system, or cavern system, I think it's called. Whoops. So anyways, everyone freaks out on Juno, and it's like this big thing, which understandable. I'm doing this for you. I wanted us to name this place, make it our own, and this and that and the other thing. So they all keep moving forward, and then they eventually get separated after Holly breaks her leg really badly, like bone is out. This is where Sam's medical knowledge comes into play. And that is where the cave people come into play. If you've seen The Descent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, spoiler warning again. They're these creatures. They're blind, they can't smell very well. If they can, they don't use that to their advantage, so they communicate with hearing and echolocation. They make these really cool clicking sounds. It's really cool. They're very interesting creatures. They're basically like if deep sea fish were land creatures, because they've adapted to live in these caves. So they're pale and they're like slimy, and they are carnivores. And yeah, everyone gets split up and people are picked off one by one until Sarah and Juno are the only ones left. And then, and I'm gonna go into detail about a lot of like character death later during when I talk about why I like the movie so much. And then Sarah discovers something about Juno, and she abandons Juno. And we never get on-screen confirmation that Juno dies. Well, we do. But we like hear her screaming in the background as Sarah escapes. She drives and she sees Juno's ghost, similar to how she keeps seeing her daughter's ghost. And it's a really good scene. So that's the basic plot of the movie. So in chronological order, one of my first favorite scene is a scene right after the tiny passageway collapses on Sarah. They're all standing and they find this gorge, I guess. There's passage here, passage on the other side, nothing. There's like literally nothing. They throw a rock down there, it's a super intense fall. There's water on the sides of the gorge. There's no way for them to climb down and climb back up, so they have to go across the ceiling. So Rebecca, who is Sam's big sister, decides she's going to go over there first by setting up like a rig with these clamps so that so that she can set up a line for everyone else to slide across. It's a very tense scene, and at first I was wondering why she was struggling so much to like get the clamps in the spaces, and then I realized that she has nothing to support herself on except for her arms. Like it's all arms right now, and if she lets go, she will fall and die. And I was like, oh, dang. So she gets that set up, and as she gets to the very like last part before she can come down onto the other ledge, she sees a hook left by someone, right? Like a hook already there that she didn't place. And Juno had said that no one had discovered this cave. Meaning, if there's a hook here from a human being, that means it has been discovered, but no one lived to tell everyone else about it because it's unmarked. The rest of the scenes are after they've like been discovered by the cave monsters and have discovered the cave monsters. So it's a scene focused on Sarah, and she's in this like kind of pit thing, being stalked by several monsters, and she's surrounded by like bones and corpses of various things, some of them human, and she falls into this like pool of blood left over from all of like the cave monster's previous meals, and it's like, you know, like nasty. So what she does, it really shows like how strong all of them fought so hard until the end. And I'm like, honestly, like even Holly, whose leg was clean in half broken, like her bone came out of her leg, all of them fought so freaking hard. I'm like, I think I probably would have given up. Which is like morbid, but it's true, you know? And I really appreciate the whole thing. She figures out, this is also one of my favorite scenes, her figuring out what their weaknesses are that they can't see. So like, but they can hear. So it's, she like lays on this rock, she pulls herself out of the pool of blood, and then another one comes, and so she like holds her breath, lays completely still, and she's like turned, like if you're the camera and I'm Sarah, she's like turned like this, and one of the cave things comes and it steps on her head. She doesn't make a sound, like does not make a sound, and then it like stands on her trying to find something, and then it goes away, and then she's able to move on, and it's really good. Beth's death scene is my next favorite. It's also my second to last favorite. So how Beth dies is her and Juno are in this cave, this like section of the cave system, fighting off the cave people or the cave monsters. And Juno, we get some really cool shots of like Juno, she's using a pick that you use for rock climbing to like kill the creatures. It's really cool. And it's a close-up on like Juno, and then we hear something behind her. So we all think, and so does Juno, that it's a monster. And Juno swings around and catches whatever it is in the back of the neck. Pick pokes through the neck. It closes up on its face. It's Beth. It's not a monster. It's Juno's friend. And so Beth reaches out and she like grabs Juno's necklace, which we've seen several times throughout the movie she really cares about. And she pulls it off as she falls back. And she's like laying there, you know, with a fatal, but like also not immediately fatal neck wound. And she's got Juno's necklace in her hand, and she's like laying there, and she says to Juno, "Don't leave me," and Juno turns around and she runs. And I'm like, whoa. It was a very emotional scene. I was like I had watched the kill count for this before I watched the movie, and I had forgotten everything like about it. I just knew that like cave monsters, only 1 or 2 people makes it, and that's all I got. But I didn't realize how actually brutal that scene was to actually watch. It's crazy. It's crazy. Sarah finds Beth before she finds the rest of the group. So at this point, Holly is gone. Juno Sam and Rebecca are all together somewhere trying to like find Sarah before they leave, because Juno told them that Beth is dead when she's actually not. So then Sarah finds the cave where Holly died and Juno and Beth had their thing. Beth is like, don't trust Juno, like blah blah, Juno did this to me. Sarah's like, no, Juno would never, she couldn't have done this to you, blah blah, whatever. And Beth hands her Juno's necklace, and on Juno's necklace it says love each day, which we learned previously was something that Paul, Sarah's dead husband, said all the time. It was like his thing, right? And then Beth says it was a gift from Paul. And so so the implication, it's never outright said, but the implication is that Juno slept with Paul, and it's shown in the beginning scene, and it happened. Like, it's supposed to be implied. It's not like fans think blah blah. No, it's like the people who made the movie are like, yeah, Juno slept with Paul, which sucks. They hear things approaching, and Beth is like, I don't want those things to get me while I'm still alive. Sarah, you know what you have to do. And Sarah's like, nah, no, no, no. And then Beth is like, you can't just leave me here. Like, you cannot leave me like this. I'm not gonna make it. You need to like finish it now before those things get me. And I was like, so then Sarah takes a rock, and then Beth is gone. Which I thought Juno was gonna do in the first place after she gave her a fatal neck wound that would take forever to actually kill her. Moving on. It's a horror movie, clearly. It is so scary. It's not even funny. It's probably one of the scariest movies I've seen to date, in all honesty. Like, it just had the right amount of everything. And then it wasn't even the monsters. Like, if you had taken the cave people out of this movie completely, no cave people at all, no cave people, it still would have been a good horror movie, because what I like the most about it is that it exploits natural human fears. Like, I'm scared of caves. I'm scared of unknown things. I'm scared of tight spaces and the dark. So this movie was like my worst nightmare. And it just like really, like, a lot of the shots in the movie are, you know, they're like tight or they're dark and you can't really tell what's going on. And so it's very good at exploiting natural human fears. And then on top of that, the actual concept of the movie is also horrifying. Being like lost and abandoned in the dark. It's like 100 and whatever days with James Franco, right? How can you watch this movie? I give it 5 out of 5 stars. 5 out of 5. It's genuinely one of my favorite horror movies. Shout out to my parents for making me watch it, and shout out to Reed for making me watch As Above, So Below, which is what led my parents to making me watch The Descent. I watched The Descent on Hulu. If you don't have Hulu, I'm sorry, it's not available to stream anywhere else. I do encourage renting it if at all possible, or buying a copy of it if at all possible, because it's really a good movie. Before I watched the movie, I watched the kill count on Dead Meat. So I'm gonna put the link to that in the description if you don't actually want to watch the movie. Again, I encourage you to do so. It is really a great movie, and it's awesome, and a lot of stuff in it I didn't talk about in this that you should watch it. You really should. Even though I just spoiled it for you, it's still very interesting to see it, and it's a good horror movie. So anyways, that's it. Subscribe.